Welcome to Old Horse Racing All the Time. I'm your host, Al. 2024 horse racing leaders. Who is the top 3-year-old male in the country right now? We're going to take a look at the leaders, where they're likely to land next, and who's going to wind up winning top 3-year-old 2024 Eclipse Awards. We have 3 different winners in the Triple Crown races. Number of horses that have had excellent prep race that weighs into their 2024 voters' decision. We have Mystic Dan, winner of the Derby, Kentucky Derby, and second place in the Preakness. Sees the Gray, wins the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes goes to Dornoch with a very impressive first time out stake, second place finisher, Mind Frame, coming in second in that race. And of course, Sierra Leone came in third there in the Belmont and second in the Kentucky Derby. We got some prep races coming up. 4 of them that can lead to swaying the voters in the Eclipse Award winner for top 3-year-old male for 2024. We have the Jim Dandy at Saratoga, a 500K G2 stakes race on the 27th. At Saratoga, July 27th, Forte winner there last year. And of course, before that, on the 20th at Monmouth, we have the Haskell Stakes, G1 race, big stakes, carries a lot of weight. Perhaps the crown jewel of the 3-year-old season, may carry the most weight with the exception of the Breeders' Cup, is the Travers Stakes at Saratoga late August. And then you have the Pennsylvania Derby, big G2 race over at Parks in September, and then the Breeders' Cup. So you got some races here. I'm going to talk a little bit about who's leading, where they're pointing to, and we would begin by bringing up the daily racing form leaders. Current, and that's current right now. So we're going to present that, talk a little bit about their leaders, and then move to a couple more sources whose rankings uses a different system, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. Top 3-year-old males. You have to have at least one start to get in these rankings. And right now, based on their body of work for 2024, they have Mystic Dan as the top choice right now by McPeak. That's the leader. Derby winner, Preakness runner-up, tepid nod in a wide open division, they say in the notes. Right now he's the leading money winner for the 3-year-olds at this point, over $4 million. For those of you who put a lot of weight, voters sometimes put a lot of weight into the total money won by the horse, or the strength of certain races. We all know the Breeders' Cup is going to carry the most weight. But right now, Mystic Dan is the leader. And second, they have Dornoch, who won the Belmont Stakes. It's a tough trip in the Derby, game to grab Belmont, and he is pointing to the Jim Dandy next out. So he's bypassing the Haskell and looking at the Jim Dandy the following weekend. At number 3, they have Sierra Leone, ranked as the third place right now, as far as the 3-year-olds go. Sierra Leone, only chance to win the top 2024 male 3-year-old. Is going to have to win at least 2 of the big races going forward. His best shot probably would be the Travers, and then the Breeders' Cup. That's a tall order. But he's going to have to win a big one because he didn't win any of the Triple Crown races, and close is not close enough in those races. But they have him up there. They have him ranked for 3rd, missed by a nostril in the Derby. Nothing went right in the Belmont. That's the story with Sierra Leone. Brilliant, brilliant colt. He has 2 races lost by a nose and 1 by a length and a half when he got knocked around all over the place, and still came in 3rd. Worst finish by a length and a half. 4th, Mind Frame, that 3rd time the starter for Pletcher. Then you got some of the others here. Sees the Gray, despite winning. They have 5 Forever Young, the Japanese horse. I'm sure we'll hear from him again in the Breeders' Cup. I don't know if they're gonna bring him here. It might be cost prohibitive to ship him in for anything except something really big to win the top 3-year-olds. And Seize the Gray, the Preakness winner, number 6. And what about Bob Baffert Smooth? I believe he's heading to the Haskell for his next start, and Bob has won a number of Haskells before. Muth, missed the he missed out over in the Preakness that he had to scratch out. High Brisnet, a high buyer figure of 98. If you look at the buyer figures of these horses, his best is 98. They have Catching Freedom 8th. Brad Cox 97. The highest buyer figure of the year for any 3-year-old male is the inconsistent Fierceness, who last finished 15th in the Derby after being right up there with the leaders, turning for home. Came off a 110 in his previous race, the prep race, and they're planning to bring him back for the most likely the Haskell, but we'll see that on the next page. And then Nisos, Baffert's horse, 105. So that's how they see it over with the daily racing form, who their leaders are. So Mystic Dan, Dornoch, Sierra Leone, all pretty tightly bunched. But the buyer's figures, Mindframe put it up an impressive buyer of they have 103 as his high buyer of the year, actually. But he didn't match that. Dornoch comes off a race where he put up a 101. So we're not seeing any blinding speed here, except for Fierceness is 110 in Florida. But now we're going to go to another stat. A lot of people put weight into the money leaders. So let's take a look at the money leaders, because that carries weight. And the voters, they could be finicky when looking at making their minds up for top performer of the year. For example, Brad Cox had the best statistics by trainers last year, best trainer statistics last year. Far more victories and money earned than, say, Brad Cox, but he was the storyline of Bill Mott, the legendary Bill Mott. He was the storyline last year with Cody's Wish, and he won some big G1 races. So what are the trainers going to have? What are the voters going to have in mind when they decide on this top 3-year-old? So by the DRF figures, the races, the top 3-year-olds race is up for grabs. But let's look at the Equibase numbers. Okay, this is by the year this year, and right now Mystic Dan has won over 4,070,000 plus. And so he's over 4 million this year, followed by 3-year-old Sierra Leone is second. 4 races, 2 wins, a second and a third, 2 million, just over 2 million, 2,021,000. And followed by Seize the Gray, 1.7 million. Now the filly, Torpedo Anna, where is she going to come into the mix? She's undefeated this year, 3 for 3, 1.5 million. Dornoch is in 6th, 1.494 million. Most victories this year, Seize the Gray, 3. Sierra Leone and Mystic Dan, 2. You go down to Muth, Bob Baffert's Muth. He's 2 for 2 this year, 907,000. Fierceness down at 22, second, 601,000. Just really had the good Derby prep race, 3 races, a win and a third, and he missed the board in the Derby. So if you're going by this, by victories, by earnings, Mystic Dan, yeah, DRF has him as a tentative leader. right now, slim. That's probably based on the first in the Derby and second in the Preakness, and 4 million in earning, nearly double, just over double of what Sierra Leone has earned at this point. So this is from Equibase. So right now, we're looking at a tight race. I see Mystic Dan leading now. Do I see him leading when the all the 3-year-old races are in the books? I don't know about that. I'd be surprised if he is the leader, but he is a tentative leader right now, based on earnings and first and second in the Derby, and then second in the Preakness. Now we're going to go to a last power rankings. This is a little bit different. They rank here based on a point formula that takes into account the earnings, the victories, the strength of races, and they give each horse a number based on a power ranking. So let's bring that up right now, and then we'll draw a conclusion. And what I like about this one is this is from the power ranking, 3-year-old males. This is from Horse Racing Nation. With the Kentucky Derby in the history books, here are the top 3-year-old males to watch for the remainder of the season. Okay. Now they mention the next race of these horses. Let me close this thing here. Okay, they mention the next race. Now, based on their formula, they have Sierra Leone as the slim leader over Mystic Dan. 7.90 rating, Mystic Dan 7.87. This shows just how close this is. Now they're saying his next race are pointing to the Travers Stakes. That's a tentative, I guess, that they're pointing to right now. Some of these could change, but they're probably pointing to the Travers Stakes for the next race, which would leave Sierra Leone's lone shot of winning top 3-year-old by taking the Travers and the Breeders' Cup. And unless he comes back and runs Travers and then runs Pennsylvania Derby, winning those two, I don't know if that would be enough to get Sierra Leone home, but none of the others in here, the 3-year-old males, would have to. Any of them wins the Breeders' Cup. That's end of it for Sierra Leone's top 3-year-old male. They have Mystic Dan second, very close, 7.87. Here, 3. They have Seize the Gray. I guess they're taking into account the third victory. And here they say Seize the Gray is going to bypass the Jim Dandy and the Haskell, and so far pointing to the Travers. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Seize the Gray right now, it's definitely going to have to win either the Travers or Breeders' Cup to take 3-year-old males, and some of the others are not going to have to do anything. And Fierceness right now still gets the 4th ranking, 7.81. See how tight this is? They say Fierceness pointing to the Haskell. Remember, Fierceness has the big buyer figure, and he has some other things going for him. Won the prep race in Florida very impressively, and he's going to have to take a couple of these G1s, beginning with the Haskell, and then Rapoli's plan is. Already says he's planning to go to Saratoga to win the Travers. So that's Fierceness. A lot of moving parts here. Catching Freedom came in 3rd in the Preakness. This one has a lot to do, but still based on the work. 7.72 rating. Any others here jumping out? Dornock, 7.50. They say he's pointing to the Haskell Stakes. Now, I want to go back to Mystic Dan for a second. Mystic Dan, McPeak, the trainer, has already, here he says they're pointing to the Haskell, but there's been a change of plans, at least by the last that McPeak says. He says he's run a busy campaign. They're going to take Mystic Dan. He ran all 3 Triple Crown races, the only 3-year-old male to do that this year. Came in, I think, 5th in the Belmont Stakes. Really didn't factor. He's not pointing to the Haskell, which would be next July 20th, but they're talking the Travers Stakes. Bring him back for the Travers, and then bring him back for the Pennsylvania Derby. That would be the plan. So run about a month apart, and then take October and that off next month and change off, and run next in the Breeders' Cup. So Mystic Dan pointing for the Travers, not the Haskell. And Dornoch, he's going to have to win another big race. Either maybe a Travers is good enough. Maybe if none of the other 3-year-old contenders win another G1, or the Travers and maybe the Haskell. They say he's pointing towards the Haskell here. So they're very aggressively placing him in Mind Frame, Pletcher. So Dornoch still could get it done, one of the Triple Crown races. Mind Frame, they're 7.48. They're pointing Pletcher and Irad Ortiz up. They're pointing for this one towards the Haskell. And any others here that have a higher racing? We're looking down the line here. Then the points start to fall off a bit. Honorable mention here, Muth, Bob Baffert pointing this one to the Haskell Stakes. Last race, first in the Arkansas Derby. So that'll be interesting. A lot of raving going on about Muth. Any others here that really jump out? And I think we covered most of them here, the main contenders. But you could see it's a very tight race for top 3-year-olds, and where this is going to go. Even though this is a relatively weak 3-year-old crop in 2024, it's turning out to be a fantastic, exciting season for them because they're so bunched up, and any of them can have a shot to win, especially the top ones here. And you have some that didn't even compete in the Triple Crown Series, like Muth, that might jump up and surprise. So every race is important. The Jim Dandy, that we got the Haskell up next, then the Jim Dandy, then we have the Travers, then we have the Pennsylvania Derby, and of course the Breeders' Cup. So you got races here. 4 big races that really are going to play a role in deciding this. So we'll keep an eye on that. Who do I think is going to take it? Just about anybody's guess right now. There's some good horses in here, and some good horses that are coming off poor races, and some that are good that are always around, like Mystic Dan, at least in the first 2 Triple Crown races, and his prep race. And then Sierra Leone always seems to be involved. So who knows? Then we have Fierceness. What can we expect from Fierceness? Will the real Fierceness show up for the Haskell and his next races? Seems to have a little bit of problem with his achy feet, so we'll stay tuned there. And then, of course, Sierra Leone with the lugging in, lugging out, lugging in. So what do you think? Who do you think is going to wind up when the smoke clears as the top 3-year-old male for 2024? Put your comments down below. Thanks for watching, everybody.